Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Who's Your Band podcast. We have two great guests today from The Sopranos, from Ray Donovan, American Gangster, The Irishman. We have Robert Funaro and comic, author, club owner, Al Morton. Hello, guys.
Hey, what's going on, folks?
All right. So let's we'll go back and forth with both of you guys, and we'll start with Robert first. A lot of questions here, man. Love your work. But here's the first question right off the top of my head. You played Eugene Pornicovo in The Sopranos. How did you get the role? Did you have to audition for Georgina Walken and Sheila Jaffe, two great casting agents?
Sheila wasn't auditioning at that time on the top of the third season. She had gone to California to work some other things. So it was Georgianne that I auditioned for. So that's a bit of a story. I did a play 7 years prior, maybe 8 years prior to Sopranos with James Gandolfini, Streetcar Named Desire. You might know that one.
I've heard of it. Who did you play in Streetcar?
I played Stanley.
I could see that.
And he played Mitch. He has that Karl Malden appearance,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Tony Soprano, but of course, James always, has a big heart like that character, Mitch. And we toured Scandinavia for 3 months, and we became friends, and we went our separate ways afterward. And I think we met maybe once, and Jim was kind of getting some traction. I kind of was, I got married, had a child and everything. And to make this a long story even shorter, a friend of mine who was involved with comedy, Gordon Silver, who was working for stand-up, and he went to Gotham. Al might know him. He was at a party, and he went up to Jimmy Gandolfini. He said, "Hey, I know a friend of yours, and you did a play with him." I said, "Oh, yeah?" And James said, "Oh, yeah, who was that?" It was Bobby Funaro. And if I was you, I'd give him a part on Sopranos. So, believe it or not, where's Bobby? What's he doing? He's working at Caroline's on Broadway. He's a manager there. There happened to be a role that was, that they were looking for. And James came down to Caroline's on Broadway, and he took his driver, Joe Fay. They went to a couple of clubs. They might have stopped by the New York Comedy Club. I'm not sure about that. But they went to a couple of clubs, and then they finally found the right one because he didn't remember the comedy club. Joe was his driver in the local one, the Union. And I walked down to work, and, you have to submerge into Caroline's, downstairs. And I see this guy at the bar, big guy at the bar. I said, "Geez, that looks like Jimmy." And it was him. And, "How you doing, James?" And I said, "Hey, how you doing, Bobby? And what's going on? You been acting?" And I said, yeah, I've been acting on and off." A lie. Hello. Yeah. Well, actually, he talked to me about the role that they were looking for. And he said, "I can't promise you anything, but I'd like to get you an audition with Georgianne." And then he asked if I'd been acting, and I said, "Yeah," which you always got to lie. He was going to say, "Yeah, I'm," which wasn't true. I really was working as a manager, and I had a kid, and I had on and off auditions, but nothing really serious. I really wasn't pursuing it. It's hard to find an agent back. It's always hard to find an agent. So anyway, I auditioned, and I got a part, and the rest is history.
You were great in that part. Question: why were you a manager at Caroline's? Were you ever a comic? Ever wanted to be a comic?
I was working at Madison Square Garden, and I lost the job because my brother-in-law got me into and back then they had this whole thing with the family, and you weren't supposed to have family, but I was an event manager there, and one of the security guys who wasn't doing his job with another union thing.
Who'd you work under at Madison Square Garden?
There's John Fay, and my brother-in-law, Carmine Manna, he was one of the big people for the event managers, and we took care of security, ticket takers, and everything like that. And I lost the job. So Gordon was a good friend. We'd known each other for about 5-6 years. He said, "Hey, you know what? They're looking for a doorman / bouncer at Caroline's. You want to come down? You want to, check it out? And they need somebody." So I said, "Okay, let me check it out." And of course, working the door, I got to be able to make some money.
Who was some of your favorite?
Hard cash. So I was like, this job ain't bad. On a Friday, Saturday night, I'm making $250 in my pocket plus the salary. So I always loved comics, but I never really did comedy. But that's how. And then of course I became a manager later on.
Who were some of your favorite comics?
Oh, Kevin Meaney. I was there for Kevin James before it happened. Ray Romano before it happened for him. All these guys, they couldn't even get a spot there. They got some spots, but some of them didn't headline. Ray wasn't really a headliner when I was there, and I was there for quite some time. So I mean, Meaney, Romano, of course, David Tell. That always, his stuff was great. Paul Mooney. I saw all the great ones. Yeah, I mean, what's his name? Bobcat.
Goldthwait.
Yeah. I was there when he climbed the curtain and he fell on the table of lawyers and he got sued. I was right at the door. He just climbed the curtain.
Robert, were you there? Were you there during the South Street Seaport days, or you were there strictly?
No, I was just strictly on Broadway, Al. Just Broadway.
Hey, Jeff, here's a little tidbit that you may not know about me, considering that we go back a very, very long way as well. Did you know that I actually went to an open casting call for The Sopranos?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a million years ago when they did one in Harrison, and it was the one where Johnny Sack's wife, Ginny.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think she was the only prominent person to get cast out of that in a reoccurring role. I think a lot of other people wound up getting extra roles, like at funerals and weddings and stuff like that.
I can only convince them that I was half Italian, but when they started looking at my dumb Irish face, there was no chance that I was getting that role. I'll tell you that right now.
Now, Robert, did you know Al when he was a comic? Because before Al was a club owner, he was a comedian. He was on TV as a comedian.
Well, you know what? I don't know. Did Al, did you do Caroline's Comedy Hour? I'm not sure. I wasn't around then.
I did Evening at the Improv.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't get on Caroline's Comedy Hour. But
Richard Jennings.
Robert tells a great story about a time when he was no longer at Caroline's, and he interviewed with me for a job. Do you remember that, Robert? And I think you mentioned money.
Oh, yeah. I might have. Yeah, I remember, yeah.
He goes, "What will the job pay?" And it went very silent after that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You were looking for a manager.
I was looking for a manager, and a mutual friend, Chris Murphy, turned me on to Robert.
Right.
And we talked on the phone, and then he goes, "Well, what does it pay?" And I froze like a deer in headlights.
Robert, I don't know if you know this, but Al has a book out now. He has a book. It's called "I Built a Comedy Empire in 30 Short Years." Al, Al's been in the business forever. Why now? Why 2020 inspired you to write this book?
Well, it's called "I Did It on a Dare," which is true. I built a comedy empire in 30 short years. And basically, it's stories that I've been compiling through the 30 years. But now, like we do everything, we blame it on COVID. I had a lot of time on my hands. Both the clubs are closed. And I said, you know what? If there's ever going to be a great time to write the book, I'll write it now and even include a little bit about COVID in it, and what we're going through. And there was a debate. Do we wait till the end of COVID and see how the whole comedy scene shakes out? Or do I get it out now? And I decided to get it out now. People have time to read it, and
sure. Because it must be a lot of great stories, Al. I mean, it must be great. I can't wait to read it. Check it out.
Oh, a lot of great stories.
Is it on Amazon? Can I get it?
It's on Amazon, Kindle, audio books, paperback.
It's a good read. It's a book you can read in one day. Really, it's only I think it's less than 100 pages.
Yep, slightly less than 100.
Yeah.
Like most comedians, I'm kind of lazy, So.
Yeah. What comics got their start performing in your club?
Who performed at my club?
What comics got their start in your clubs?
Well, I would say Jim Gaffigan. You know, first of all, let me just say, and Bob, I'll probably agree with this. They Many of them started in my club, but on their resume they started at Caroline's.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. But basically, definitely Jim Gaffigan. I know Lisa Lampanelli's first New York's appearance was at New York Comedy Club. She had basically started at Greenwich. Greg Giraldo started there.
Love him.
Right.
Believe it or not, Artie Lang in an improv troupe got his start at New York Comedy Club. He talks about it in his book.
Right.
You know, says he was working on an improv troupe called the Improbables at the New York Comedy Club. So a lot of them.
Yeah. Hey, Rob,
people don't realize how, that was a time when I think that a lot of comedians were able to do those rounds, and the time they put in, and there was a lot of struggle there. You could see it even with Gaffigan, and I mean, the old guys would make fun of the new guys, and they would have to, it was definitely a great experience to see that the climb, even with Greg, because Greg, I remember when Greg got a TV series, and he bought a motorcycle, and didn't pan out, but he had a motorcycle and he had some money in his pocket. So, and then he went to his own thing, did his own thing. I think they basically found their own niche,
Yeah,
there's a club that I love playing at in Virginia that has, I mean, you could tell the headshots are really, really, really old because they're all black and white. And it has Lisa Lampanelli's headshot before she actually changed her name. Her name is Lampionelli or something like that, but she changed it. And the thing that always threw me off about this club is they have a wall of death. They actually have one part of the wall with all dead comics. And I'm like, they put my headshot literally in the corner right next to it. I'm like, I got to go on a diet apparently because I'm really too close to the wall of death here.
This will always be on that wall if you die.
I'll tell you a funny story about Lisa Lampanelli. They could probably start a wall of death on all her ex-boyfriends and husbands.
Oh, yeah.
Because she went out with a guy named Frank D'Amico, who was a very funny comedian based out of Westchester. He used to own a club up there called Shooting Stars, and he passed away. She was married to, or I think lived with, Michael Sullivan Irwin. I don't know if any of you guys heard of him.
I remember Michael, yeah.
Yeah, and he's gone. And then she was married to a guy, I think his name was Stock. His last name was Stock. Jim Stock or something like that. And he passed away. So, like, 3 ex-husbands or long-term boyfriends of hers that I know of are gone and could be they were all comics, so they could be on that wall of fame.
Yeah, I'm not going to date her anytime
actually,
soon.
Jimmy Canizero, who she was married to, whatever, he made it because he's not a comic, so he's okay.
Yeah.
Rob,
and he had COVID too. So
yeah.
Rob, Al was talking about improv. I got my start in improv over at the Magnet Theater. Have you ever done any improv?
The only improv I've done is in rehearsal for a play, in plays, and maybe in scene studies. That's the only really improv I've done. I mean, they tried to. It was the people that wanted to get together, like some of the workers at Caroline's. They put together a. I wouldn't call it improv. Well, I guess maybe we were improvising. Try to do something, at the club, but it never really panned out. So, but yeah, most stuff is like for theater and of course television.
Right.
Because improvisation was created by. Some of the group people would, they get stuck on lines and it would be like you're reading lines. So take away the lines and let's get to the feeling beneath it, the lines. And then that would solve the problem. So, and then you would say the lines and then you would have all that underneath. So that was the basis. But of course, in comedy, it's a different, because Elaine May and Mike, Elaine May, and she was great. I mean, some of the comedians that, Mike Nichols and her, did Al? It's a question. Would Al ever, meet them or no? Al,
who Elaine May?
And Mike.
Elaine May and Mike Nichols.
No, never met him.
Okay.
Never met him.
Now, Robert, we were both in the Irishman. How did that come about for you? Did you have to read for Ellen Lewis?
Well, yeah, I'll tell you what. I was doing The Sinner with Jessica Biel, and they were casting for Irishman, and Chris Mason, who was a lead character on the Sinner, the first season, which was great. We did it in Carolina because I had that thing in North Carolina, that problem with that racial thing or whatever. It was more racial stuff, and they brought all the work to South Carolina. So I was filming that. I had a recurring role on it. And I'm telling Chris, I tried to get into the Irishman. My manager,
what month was this?
That was maybe 4 or 5 months. They were casting already. So he said, no, I didn't. I said, you know what? It's not going to happen for me. But as the time progressed, such a big cast, I thought I wasn't even going to get seen. And all of a sudden, my late manager, Eric Faber, God rest his soul, and he said, Marty wants to see you. Ellen wants to see you for a role. I said, me? I thought they cast it already. They started filming already in September, and they cast me. They were auditioning me in September. They started filming already. So maybe they have a problem with a character. So I got in. I was really, really surprised that I did get in.
I went in.
Ellen brought me in because of vinyl and everything. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I went in and read in September. And then I didn't officially get cast until the weekend after Thanksgiving in November. And I kept on top of my agency asking, are they passing? And they kept saying no. And I heard the problem was with Pesci, they wanted to film all his scenes up front, and they were delaying scenes and putting scenes back that he wasn't going to be in. And so they kind of, they was casting as they were going along.
Right. Yeah, that was interesting the way they did it, because I thought I had no chance of getting in. It was great to get that role. A lot of the people that I read that role said, I auditioned with your role. And they say in every film there's a particular role that everyone reads, and that was the one that I got. I was very happy with it.
I read Johnny's Sides.
Yeah, I mean, everyone said, I read Johnny's Sides. I think that was Marty's way or Ellen's way of trying to test people and measure them. But finally it came down to, okay, now we got to cast Johnny. So everyone else be putting up different places, and they finally cast it. But so it was great to work with Robert De Niro. I mean, it was great. It was a great honor and great. I mean, I know there's a lot of bullshit. I hate so many people here. I live in Staten Island. I won't see Irishman because of De Niro. I hate his fucking guts. I give you a fucking break, man.
Where did you see it for the first time?
I went to the DGA.
Okay.
DGA.
Because I'm also a Staten Islander, and my family basically rented out the atrium.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow.
Right on.
You mentioned vinyl. I mean, did that get 2 seasons or 1?
1 season.
I absolutely loved that show. I thought it was a great show, and I was actually legit pissed when I found out that wasn't picked up again.
You and a lot of other people were pissed off,
Such a great vibe. I mean, it's such an old throwback too. I mean, because I'm a music nerd on top of it. So that was I was really, really bummed out. That and actually the comedy show too. Al would probably saw that too. I'm Dying Up Here.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Another great one too. That just got canceled out of the blue.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think vinyl was, it was a great show, and I think that there were problems with HBO. When I think Terry Winter, I mean, the guy has a great track record, Emmy Award winner. I mean, I don't know. When he decided to move on, I guess they wanted to go in a different direction. I know there's multiple stories. I do know one thing, and I probably could talk about it now. I don't think Marty was very happy with the way HBO treated Terry, and you can see that Irishman didn't go to Hulu. It went to Netflix. So
Netflix also put up the money for it.
Huh?
Netflix also put up the money for the Irishman.
Yeah, but I mean, I heard on the grapevine that Hulu really, and I think that, you got to do the right thing when it comes to, I think, us Italians, you cancel the show, you hurt people. I mean, vinyl seemed like it can go on another 2 years. I mean, the whole story about Morris Levy. I mean, if you read Tommy James' autobiography, semi-autobiography, Tommy James and the Shondells, I mean, that's a great biography. I mean, by the way, I mean, just to learn about the music business and what vinyl, that whole thing with vinyl was. I mean, back then, man, it was a lot of tossing and a lot of, getting in a boxing ring and having it out, man. There was no copyright bullshit. Like, I mean, that's my song. What do you mean it's your song? You wrote it for him? Well, no, you're writing it for Tommy. And that's it.
Speaking of music, I love who your band is, Robert. When we've been doing this show, you're the first person to bring up this band. Your band is the Ramones.
Yes.
Wow, what a great choice. I didn't see that coming. What got you into the Ramones?
Well, I mean, I became being on the show with Stevie Van Zandt and the Underground Garage, and he had that syndicated show. I started listening to the show, and I started listening to the Ramones, and I said, wow, this is great stuff. It's really a bit off the beaten path. And I remember going to CBGB's for the fundraiser, and I was just like, I was dead stone, like, a groupie. I love to see that. I mean, I like that kind of music. It's simple. It's not mainstream. It probably won't happen again because of all the killing of the creative class. The whole culture is being ripped out of, weeded out because there's none of those record stores, bookstores anymore. That whole scene down there, it's basically gone. But I like the idea of not being so mainstream, like a lot of independent directors I like John Cassavetes and Elaine May, who did what's that film with Cassavetes and Husband, not Husbands, but anyway, independent directors too. You like them too because they have a little bit more personal stories. I mean, Marty got a chance to do, a mainstream, but he started really in personal films.
Hey,
who's that knocking on my door?
Was there an album or a song that really made you gravitate towards the Ramones? Because this is a band that doesn't, like, I don't know if a lot of people know, but this was a band that never had a top 10 song. They were mainstream.
I used to see them in Brooklyn all the time before they really.
Where'd you see them, Al?
On Quinton Road, they used to be in Brooklyn, on Quinton Road, a corner little place. I can't remember it. It eventually it was a rock club, and eventually it became a disco called Fantasy Island. But I can't remember what it was called when it was a rock club. And the Ramones used to be there quite often.
Well, I think that, Al, could you name a few comedians that are kind of like the Ramones, but they're not mainstream? Would Dave Attell be in one of those? Considered that?
Yeah. You would put maybe more like a Mitch Hedberg over Attell. I mean, Attell, I think, is almost more mainstream. He has a show on Comedy Central. I don't know how many people really get Mitch Hedberg.
I love it. Hedberg was great, yeah.
You got to realize
Bill Hicks was one I loved.
Oh, Bill Hicks was amazing, but you got to realize the genius of Mitch Hedberg is that he would just do one-liners for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And each one was just greater than the next one.
So hard to write that way.
Oh, my God.
And you know what's fascinating? There are some guys in the world that if they do one-liners, people call them hacky comics. But he got away with doing stuff that a lot of people would have been called hack for.
Would you say Stephen Wright is a hack?
Huh?
Would you say Stephen Wright is a hack?
No, he's got his own kind of weird style, but
basically it was one-liners. He was great.
Yeah,
he was great.
I guess so. Yeah. Now, remember a guy named Mark Cohen? You probably remember him, Robert. Yeah. Mark did a lot of kind of weird one-liners, but people didn't see him as a hacky guy. He went on to success. He probably did Caroline's Comedy Hour, and I know
he did
improv. So
he
did a lot of
Walking in Memphis.
What's that?
And then he wrote Walking Out. Sean is shaking because I just made a very hacky joke.
Not the first time, Jeff. Not the first time.
The thing is, I set myself up for that.
Oh my God.
Al, who's your band?
Me, listen, I go all over the place. I can go from the Beatles and the Rolling Stones to Alabama, so I like a lot of different Eagles, but it seems when I mention the bands I like, I probably stopped liking bands in like the 80s or something.
Al, true or not, did you or did you not go see Donny Osmond at the St. George Theater?
Yes, my wife loves Donny Osmond, and
sure,
I had
your
to
wife.
keep her happy.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Where is she, in Canada? Come on. No,
I was so happy when Jeff told me that you liked Alabama.
Love Alabama.
What a great
I'll tell
band.
you a funny story. It's very hard to get Alabama tickets anywhere on the East Coast.
True.
They hardly are ever here. And if they are, it's like in Schenectady or some like faraway place. So 2 years in a row, I've had tickets to see them on the East Coast.
Me too.
Red Bank got canceled last year, I think.
And PNC Arts Center.
Right.
Yep.
So that one got canceled. And the year before, I think I was going to go all the way to Maryland to see them and just hook it up with a night at the casino and dinner and all that. And they canceled that one too. So this year I'm supposed to see them in October, I think in the Poconos. So hopefully that'll happen.
Hopefully I'll open for you, brother. I'm praying for you.
My mom is a gigantic country fan, so that's where I got my country music love for for that genre. And she was always into this band called the Statler Brothers.
Oh, sure.
Well, yeah, I heard of
The Statler Brothers are a great band, great 4-part harmony, but again, they don't play in this area. So a million years ago, I was in a band as well. So my whole bandmates are going down to Asbury Park to see a band called Black Label Society, which is Zakk Wylde, Ozzy Osbourne's guitar player. She says, "Can you please take me to see the Statler Brothers?" I'm like, "All right, where is it?" She goes, "Binghamton, New York." I'm like, "Okay, what time is the show?" It's a 5 o'clock show because everybody in there is 117 years old,
Oh my God.
I fly up to Binghamton. I go to the show. My mom I'm the youngest person in the room. My mom's the second youngest person in the room. I'm talking like oxygen tanks, wheelchairs. It was hard. The show was over by 8 o'clock. I fly back from Binghamton, New York, all the way back to Bayonne, literally kick her out of the car and fly down to Asbury Park. And I caught the last half of Black Label Society.
That's cool.
That's dedication. Okay. Hey, Al, quick question. We were talking about like changes and stuff here. What's changed in the comedy world in the last 10 years? And do you mention it in your book?
Is this a trick question? Like, do you know what are you saying I mentioned it in the book?
I want to hear your answer.
Well, definitely social media is a big change in stand-up comedy. And, there was a time when, network executives and even to some extent club owners and bookers, they were the gatekeepers. They decided whether you would get a TV show or whether you would get on an audition to be seen by TV executives. And what's changed, I think, in the last 10 years with multiple platforms being available to people to get their work out directly is the social media and the YouTube and the Amazon and the Hulu and all that stuff. If you're very talented and you have a big following of people, you could circumvent some of these traditional gatekeepers.
If I was a comedian, and I came to you and said, I had this following on Twitter, I got 50,000 people following me. I can fill up your club. I'm funny. Book me on the club, audition me or book me. And has that ever happened to you? And the club has been sold out?
Yes, it's happened to me, both sides of the coin. In other words, where people have these huge followings
Right.
And, you know, in the old days, Robin, you probably remember this, when someone wanted to promote a show, I would ask them, what's your marketing plan? How are you going to fill the seats? And, oh, we're going to be out there in Times Square handing out flyers and doing this and doing that. Nowadays, it's, oh, I got a big following on social media. Now, that could go one of two ways.
Right,
You know, we have been very lucky at times where the people fill the room.
Right.
And, you know, we have a great night of it, and it's successful. And then there have been other comedians that have these social media followings that don't quite pan out. It's virtual world, you know?
Right, yeah.
These are not really your friends, you know? And,
yeah.
Right? And so at the last second, we might have to switch them from the 180-seat room to the 80-seat room upstairs,
right.
And then they don't, you know, they don't even fill that. So it could bomb.
Yeah, it's hard from the comics point of view too, because like I know, you know, I work with Jeff a lot, and you know, I'm more of a road comic. I don't really work in the city too much. So I know my capabilities. I know what I can do, and it's hard for me to get into a new market, because just say like out in the Midwest, I know I would do great out in the Midwest, and they'll say, what's your social media following out in the Midwest? So I can say, I don't know, 40 people. So, and I mean, because I'm a New Jersey comic, so it's hard on my end too. And then I wind up opening for somebody who just has a gigantic following, and sometimes it doesn't work out as great because I know what I can do, and these guys just have these amazing numbers because they can do funny videos, or they can just do, you know, use stupid filters and make jokes, and it doesn't really translate back into doing comedy.
Right.
You're right. That's very true.
I've opened for soap opera stars who don't have the time, where I was the opener and actually did more time than the headliner, who's the soap opera guy. Because, you know, they've only been doing it for maybe not even a year or a little over a year. I mean, but they're selling more tickets on their name than on mine.
Well, a perfect example of that is if you were ever to book any of the Whack Packers on the Howard Stern show.
Correct.
Right? I mean, except for Shuli Agar, who can
He's a real comic.
He can hold his own as a comic. Most of these other people, you know, they'll put together 3 or 4 Whack Packers and then a Bob Levy who can actually do an hour, you know,
right,
and carry the show. So, you know, you're right. And sometimes even those people, they do so many shows, and they're you know, they'll do a Long Island club on Monday, and they'll do a Queens club on Tuesday. Their thing gets so saturated, nobody cares to see him anyway. You know, except for Beetlejuice. He draws. He's funny.
Now, speaking of Whack Packers, hey, Robert, how did you get involved with directing Mike Boschetti's one-man show?
Well, I knew Mike from Staten Island. I knew him from Caroline's because he was doing some spots at Caroline's. They would bring him in from time to time. And I said, there's something about this guy. He's a character out of this. He's just living at the wrong time.
Well,
I mean, like Max Sennett, like Charlie Chaplin, that whole era there, he missed the wrong era of living, because he really would have been a lot more appreciated. So
sure.
I was training in Soho, you know, during the Soprano days. On the downtime, I would have I did an acting class that I had about 6 or 7 people in, and Mike was one of them. And all I remember is that he didn't always like pay me, but I didn't really care. Just to have him there was just, it was great to have him there, you know. It was just great to be around him, you know, just because he made me laugh, you know. So anyway, he told me he had this thing about going into the military called space cooking. I said, really? Let's talk. Why don't you take that into class? Because he didn't want to do scenes, and you know, he did like to do scenes, but that's personal. Why don't you try doing that? And he started writing it. I said, this would be a great one-man show. Maybe 10, 11, 12 years later, we still kept in touch. He lives right around the corner from me. And I said, you know, Mike, maybe we should revisit that and try to make it a one-man show. So why don't you develop it and write it? And he just kept on coming every week with more and more stuff. And then the final hour came. Well, what do we do with it? And I said, well, what are we going to do with it? And I really can't afford to produce it, you know. at a regular theater or off Broadway theater, and you're not equity, so we wouldn't have a problem. But I said, well, we'll do it. Let's see if we can get a chance to put it somewhere. And I think, I don't know, Al would have to explain that. And he talked to Al, and Al was kind enough to have us at the Broadway in the small room so we can basically develop it. And we didn't get a big crowds or anything like that. It was kind of difficult to do that. I guess we just didn't happen. And then finally I got a friend of mine, the 13th Street Theater, that old place down on 13th Street and 6th Avenue. It was once the John Casals Theater. There was a summer that they were producing some plays, and I submitted it to them. They said, well, you can do it here for free. All you got to do is pay for the technical stuff and pay for the stage manager. And I said, great. And we did it there. Again, we had a problem bringing people in because it was the end of the summer. It was like that time when no one wants to go anywhere. But it was a great experience working with Mike. And I think the play really is he's the only guy in the world that could do it. It's 4 weeks in boot camp and he gets kicked out. And it's only Mike Buscetti could happen to Mike Buscetti,
I wrote him a
Thank
joke
you, Al.
once.
Thank you, Al, for that.
I wrote him a joke once. I wrote him a lot of jokes, but I wrote him one joke. I go, when I was in the military, they gave me a 21-gun salute, pointed at me.
Well, I think that's important that I just mentioned Al because, if something is done, someone has to do it. I worked with Win Hammond, God rest his soul, from the American Place Theater on 46th Street. That great theater. It was the first subscription theater, and he housed a lot of great writers. And Al, I just want to thank you here and now for providing a place to try to, to giving people who don't have a lot of funds to develop. I mean, it could have went a lot of different ways, Al.
Sure.
I could have been in that audience and said, geez, I want to produce this on Broadway, but it didn't. But it's important that there are people like you who are generous enough to say, hey, I like you, take the club. And you did. Thank you.
I'm not kidding you. I once walked into someone's play at that same space, a matinee performance. I walked in there and I almost fell down because who was in the audience? Francis Ford Coppola.
Wow.
So
Wow, really?
Wow. You just never know who's going to be sitting in.
Yes.
Sometimes he might have been there for any particular. He might have known somebody in the cast, but we've had some real interesting people through the years in the audiences at the clubs. Andre Agassi.
Right.
We've had Louise Lasser from Mary Hartman.
Oh my God, she was, yeah.
That's your go-to, Louise Lasser? You had Beyonce in the club.
No, yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen, we've had, yeah, that's true. Beyonce, Jay-Z, Rue McClanahan.
No, but you led with Louise Lasser. I don't get you.
I'm
He was
a
on an acting.
comedian.
I'm a
He went from
comedian.
I don't know
Coppola to
what
Lasser.
You're a comedian. You're supposed to lead with your strongest shit.
Guys, write this down. It's 4:40 on Thursday. This is episode 15. Jeff made his first funny.
Oh,
Idiot. This is what I got to deal with. You guys don't have to put up with him for 15 weeks like I have to. Robert, I heard a rumor about you, man. You're into cooking. You're a cook. You're a chef. Is that true?
Well, I like to cook, but I wouldn't call myself a chef. I'm my own chef. I take care of my mom, and I do love to cook. And the COVID crisis has heightened my imagination. I've come up with a lot of different things, and I put them on my Instagram page, and a lot of people have been commenting, "That looks delicious." And usually, if it looks delicious, it is delicious. You know what I mean? That seems to be the thing. So I've been doing it. I've been posting the stuff: mom's gravy, shrimp oreganato, flounder oreganato, squash and rigatoni, all these different dishes. And sometimes I just wake up and say, I don't know what I'm going to cook, and I get an idea.
Are you putting this on as an Instagram show?
Huh?
Are you doing this as an Instagram show?
Well, someone had contacted me from who knows somebody at Simon & Schuster, And they said, why don't you do a cookbook and you do like the Soprano thing, and they can, you can talk about the Sopranos. The thing is, they told me that the whole book industry has changed, that they want you to basically make an investment to buy a certain amount of books, and they buy a certain amount of books. And like, so you got to put like $10,000 down. And so I think that the publishing people are like, they've kind of like got it all figured out, the metrics and everything. And to me, it's like, well, that's like, I'd rather not put the money down for something like that. But someone did approach me for a website to do like a Zoom-a-thon with my cooking. You just got to buy the tripod. I'm thinking about it. I think it might be a fun thing to do. I mean, because it's like, cooking is like, it's passed down. And like, I wish I had some of my grandmother's recipes that have been lost. And I have some of them that are unique in there still. But it's like someone giving you a branch. Someone gave me a branch of a fig tree from Calabria like 3 or 4 years ago, and it grew. And now it's growing figs, and it's like, that's a legacy that's passed on. It's funny. It just strikes me as something that's beautiful. You know what I mean? That lasts forever. It's universal. It marches through time, those recipes, and it makes people happy, and food makes people, let's face it, happy.
Yeah. I saw that Debbie Mazar and Catherine Narducci and a past guest on this show, Joe Gandasoli, are doing these cooking shows like on the web.
Yeah, Joe, I think he does private session. Like, he'll come, he hires himself out he markets himself like to come to your place and to cook for you and talk about Sopranos. It's a really good idea. You have a personal experience with him. You can talk about Sopranos, and he'll cook something for you. He's a real master chef. I'm just a local, kind of homemade kind of a chef. But he's in terms of Narducci, I don't know about anything about her cooking. She might be very good, but she's doing really well. She's getting a lot of parts. So Irishman was really great for her,
Absolutely.
I had a little crush on her.
You always say that.
Yeah. Kathy's got she's a pretty lady, she's a pretty lady, and she's a good person too,
I had a little crush on Joe Gandasoli too, but that's another story and stuff.
You may not want to go there. I'll tell you a story about that with Joey, with that character. I mean, he kind of was reading Murder Incorporated, one of those mafia books, and he pointed at lunch to me saying, Rob, I can't believe this. There was a like gay gangster. I said, really, Joe? Yeah, there's like gay gangster like in these books, and it was an actual guy that was gay. And I said, maybe I'm going to talk to Robin, and I said, all right, yeah. I said, maybe my character. I said, whatever, He actually, I was around when he asked them, and he proposed it. I wasn't there exactly when he pitched it, and they liked the concept, and they Robin and Mitch Burgess, they expounded on it, and the rest is history.
The one thing I thought was a brilliant thing about The Sopranos, but I think was also a downfall for a lot of people, is that it was so popular. It was such an amazing show. It's such a part of pop culture history that right. I always wondered if it was hard for the actors to get other roles because of being typecast as that role.
Yeah, it's true. If you look at the IMDb of a lot of the actors, they're either working in one thing, one genre, which is the mafia genre. For James Gandhi, for Jimmy, he did Caveman on Broadway. He expanded out, and he also put down, he had a dialogue coach, which he did, on Soprano in the credits. If you look carefully, it says dialogue coach for James Gandolfini. And he did a dialogue coach because he wanted to be expand, and he did. He played Mayor in Pelham 1, 2, 3, and he played a lot of different roles. But it was really a big challenge. I've been lucky enough to be able to kind of, I did Ray Donovan. My last name was not, didn't end in a vowel, So, I've been lucky on Sinner too, although they changed my name to an Italian name. But I've been lucky in that respect that I've been able to break free, just not playing mafia guys, and wise guys. But it's not easy. It's never been easy for people like George Raft and for Bogart and until they became successful, were they able to branch out and do things on their that they really were passionate about. You know, for us other actors, we take what we get. You know what I mean? And we hope for the best.
Robert, do you remember this on The Sopranos? Do you remember there was a little like storyline when they were kind of giving Junior shit because he was going down on his girlfriend?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I remember that. Yes, yeah.
It was one of those weird mafia like things that you just don't do.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody from Boca. She was from Boca.
It was Boca, and Boca means mouth.
That's right.
Listen, the writing on that, that's why I consider it the greatest show ever made, because it was so deep and there was so many layers. Robert, what was it like working with that cast? And did you ever get a chance to meet David Chase?
Oh, you kidding me? I mean, 3 years on the show. Yes. I mean, David was around all the time. Talk to him about, he's kind of like David's. It's a great guy, great personality, but he's like like a gnome. You know, he just would appear in different places, and he was one of the most very eccentric in a way, but very down to earth too, and very like one of those minds that you could be talking to him, but he's thinking 12,000 different things when you're talking to him. But yeah, David is a great guy, and I got a chance to work with him in the film that he did that wasn't such a success. You know, with Lisa Lampanelli, she played my wife. You know.
You know, you mentioned being on Ray Donovan.
I forgot the name of the film.
Robert, I got an idea for a show that you could direct. Okay. It's called Driving with Al Martin. Okay. And Al Martin the whole time. And the second you hit 30 seconds of traffic, okay, for construction or because of a pothole, just leave the camera on him and let Al do his thing. And I think you got a winner there.
That might be a new show for me. Yes.
Because Al also lived in Staten Island, and when I would go into the city, Al and I would drive into the city together, and we would sit in traffic on the West Side Highway, and he just started flipping out, and it was great. I always felt we should have had like one of those GoPros on him the whole time.
Great.
He'd sit there and point out the errors of Mayor de Blasio's ways. Of offering
yeah, I hated de Blasio back then.
Oh my God!
Al, what's next for I'm just curious. What's next for the comedy clubs? What do you think, Al?
Well, I hope it's not Zoom shows. That's for sure. But
I agree with you.
You know, they're hard. You know, for this kind of forum, it's great. For business conferences, it's great. You know, meetings. But I don't see this is a Band-Aid for stand-up comedy. It's just no audience feedback. It's very difficult.
Doing one
I think we're in a holding pattern till those clubs open up again, really. And you know, the problem is with the aforementioned mayor, we don't know when he has plans to do anything. You know, it looks like the comedy clubs in Manhattan, at least, will be open if there are anything that puts us backwards. They're scheduled sometime around early August, but if there's a setback, then I've done my planning for September, and if we open before that, great. If not, and then the next question becomes, at what capacity will they allow us to open? 25%, 50%, but in any event, I talked to a guy operating a club down here in Florida where I've been wintering, and he opened up last weekend, and he said the crowds were really light. He just doesn't know what he's going to do, So here's an area where now Florida's really been opening up. They're sort of in what I guess you would call phase 2. And, I've been going to restaurants that have had no problem socially distancing, mainly because the crowds haven't been that big. I mean, you might be sitting there with 6 or 8 people in some restaurants, and
yeah. Well, people got to feel comfortable going. That's the thing. They got to feel comfortable, when they're there for themselves. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
The way it's good. I mean, it's not a question of, anyone doing anything wrong. It's the patron that's got to say, okay, I might have some parents at home, or I don't want to, have children. And
Right.
so that's a thing. It's a hurdle, but I think in time, hopefully we can.
Yeah, I think the advantage to us opening in phase 4 is that we'll have gone through 3 phases already, where people are going to start stepping out and going out publicly, maybe sitting in a restaurant. And by phase 4, they might be, oh, I'm ready for a laugh. I'm kind of hoping that, but
next week, aside from New York City, just about every place else is going to start phase 2 in New York State.
Yeah. And, the funny thing is, like, Robert, you would probably remember this from your Caroline's days. In the old days, you used to promote, oh, we got great headliners this weekend, Colin Quinn, Dave Attell, Artie Lang. Now you're going to be promoting, we do temperature checks at the front door.
It's true. Yeah.
We have Purell stations every 20 feet. Our service people will be in masks and gloves, digital menus, I mean, it's crazy.
It is
it's
crazy.
A different world.
I'm dealing with a club out in Ohio that was bringing me in to headline for the first time, and I had a week booked, and obviously everything gets canceled because of all this. So I reached out to the guy, and he goes, look, I'm not bringing anybody except in-state people for the moment, because he's doing 25% capacity, and even has like a plexiglass spit guard across the whole top of the stage.
Wow.
Because I mean, like, I'm one of those in your face kind of guys, and I get very sweaty, and I'm a mess when I'm on stage. But big sweat guards and like a friggin' buffet in front of you.
Are hotels even open? Like, you're going out to Ohio, and I know the club that you're talking about.
Yeah, but that would be a comedy condo if I was staying there. But
you don't want to stay at that condo. You want the hotel.
Yeah,
comedy,
I mean, that's kind of one of the things. That's one of the
normal conditions are hard.
I know. I mean, listen, nobody wants to stay at a comedy condo to begin with in a normal situation. You want to go into a strange one we're going through now. So now I got to wait till probably the end of the year until he figures out if they're going to go. And they're a little bit of ahead of New York and New Jersey, too, as far as the reopening process.
Right.
So, that's what scares me when I'm watching, by the time we reopen, we will have been closed 5 or 6 months, which is unbelievable when you think about it.
Yes.
And then when you open, we have no idea what we're opening to. And that's more scary than you can plan for the 5 or 6 months some way or another. Either you negotiate with your landlords, you line up your financing. But the worrisome part to me is, what are we opening up to? A lot of people are deserting the city now. I call them the people that came in here from Wisconsin and Minnesota and all those places and jacked up the prices in Park Slope and Williamsburg and Bushwick. They're the first ones getting the hell out of the city.
Absolutely.
So they're leaving. And the people you have left are the ones that, are hardcore New Yorkers. And, but some of the people are leaving. They have nothing. What's New York becoming? You don't have Broadway theaters. You don't have Radio City Music Hall for the families and the older people. And then all the bars and the clubs for the younger people. The vibrant nightlife is just, can't happen with COVID. So
look, it's going to be, I think that it's going to be uncomfortable for a while, and it's not going to be good. And a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of setbacks. And it's just the way it's going to be, like, with the rationing and World War II and the food and the food tickets. And some people will profit off it, other people won't. But for people in the entertainment field, it's going to be a bit of a struggle, I feel. But I think that, and let's face it, COVID can be, I think it's a virus that can be, we can maybe control it, maybe by treating it, or perhaps the vaccine, if it worked. Now, a vaccine by January, this is what I'm hoping and praying for, some sort of vaccine or treatment by January, and then everything, bam, we're right back in the game. And I think
we have a better shot.
I think it can happen. I think it can happen. But it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw this because of everything that's been going on this past week, but the vaccine is now in the second stage of development, which is amazing. So there's actually optimism that before 2021, that a vaccine can become available. And I think that becomes a game changer.
Yes, absolutely.
Agreed.
And then, but up until then, it's going to be tough. Now, I think film and TV, I think we can figure out film and TV, and Netflix got the right idea, and the producers of HBO, and they're producing their own stuff, and TNT. And I think that we can find a way to, and anyway, directors, they stay in a station by themselves looking at the monitor. There's a way to, and they're working on it now, SAG's working on it now, ways to film without having all that, with being careful and social distancing and tested, like Al was talking about before you come in. So I think theater, and I mean, not theater, but film and TV will get back sooner. It'll be a little bit different. And
but
then, of course,
start filming again.
I think it could be at the end of August. I think with the right planning, they're working it out already. Maybe perhaps some scenes have to be kind of like with the extras and everything. That has to be really planned. People have to be tested. You know what I mean? There's going to have to be a way of testing on the set, but also before you come on, you got to test. I mean, but if they can get the 15-minute test going and stuff like that, then people could be comfortable, acting in that situation. You know what I'm saying? So I think it'll come back first. I'm hoping to come back in late August, early September, maybe a little sooner. I'm not sure, but I know they're working on it. The president of SAG, Gabriel Kataris, is talking about that that the wheels are in motion in order to do it. I think it can be done. But it's at the same respect, it's the same thing as theater. You got to be around people. We need that treatment or that vaccine to really make us comfortable.
What do you got coming up, Robert?
Well, I did a pilot with Michael Madsen and Danny Baldwin in Canada called For Nothing, and hopefully it gets picked up. That was interesting. It was La Cosa Nostra again. Again. But I played a crime boss in it, and I had a fun time working with Madsen, and we had some good times. We actually lost a cast member to COVID, which was sad. The cooking show. Let's see about that. Got to think of other ways to.
You might have to retool the cooking show. I'll tell you why. If you've ever, I've been at many a Chinese buffet with Mike Bichetti on Highland Boulevard, where I've had to put my hand over my food because Mike has a little. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I know.
He has a tendency to spit when he eats.
Yes.
Why would you go to a buffet with Mike Bichetti?
Just to watch
Have
it.
fun.
It's hysterical.
Have fun.
It's a comedy scene in itself.
Yes, it's so much fun. Mike's a great comedian.
But when you go out to eat with Mike Bichetti, make sure you're wearing gloves, okay? I'm talking about hockey gloves.
A hazmat suit.
Al,
so that's what I got.
Man, how can people get the book?
Amazon books. Just type in Al Martin if you can't remember the long title. It's Did It on a Dare, How I Built a Comedy Empire in 30 Short Years. It's available on iTunes. It's available on audiobooks, Kindle, and paperback.
Right
and
on.
hopefully the book. And if you buy it now, we are going to be doing a signing at the Friars Club in the fall. And
I'll be doing Morton's a Friar.
There you go. And then we'll be doing a book signing at Broadway Comedy Club, Greenwich. So we'll be getting around and doing book signings as well.
I was really hoping there was supposed to be a great roast coming up in June at the Friars Club.
Yeah, I don't think that one's gonna happen.
It ain't gonna happen. And let me just tell you something. I was salivating. Al Sharpton.
Oh,
I was salivating for this, and I don't think it's gonna happen anymore.
He just
was
on
time
the
for a quick Al
funeral.
Sharpton story, or you're wrapping it up?
Sure.
Okay. So one day I'm watching the news, and Al Sharpton is leading a protest upstate New York for some business, whatever it was. And, basically, I got the inside scoop on his protests. Basically, he rents a couple of buses, fills them with 20, 50 people in each bus, pays them $25, $30 a head to protest for the day, people that got nothing to do, mostly older people, and he gives them lunch, like a sandwich and a banana or some shit like that, or fruit. I don't mean banana in a bad way.
Stop talking. Stop talking.
Oh my God!
No, because nowadays you don't know. Everything you say is something like it's like a grenade. But anyway, so he does this whole protest. I'm watching the news. It's on all the news. You know, carrying on. That night, I go to a cigar club called the Macanudo Club in Manhattan.
Love that place.
You love that place.
Yeah, me and Kevin Dabrowski go.
Yeah, I had dinner there, was smoking a cigar. 3 tables over, there's Al Sharpton with 5 white business executives smoking cigars and drinking high-end liquor.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah, during the day, social justice warrior. At night, hanging with the white guys.
He was just at the Floyd funeral. He was just at the Floyd funeral. The memorial. He spoke at the memorial. He closed the event. You know, he closed the funeral. You know.
Yeah. I think on that note, gentlemen, we want to thank you so much for
thank
coming
you
very much.
Thank you, brother.
That was a quick hour, and you guys were tremendous. Robert, I hope everything's good. How's your mom doing?
She's doing okay. She comes out of the hospital tomorrow. They've been delaying it because of her oxygen level, and you know.
What hospital?
She's at Weill Cornell in New York. I love that place. I mean, if you get to love a hospital, I like that place. You know, it's a good place. And not Staten Island Hospital.
No, you don't want him in Staten Island Hospital.
No,
but, we wish you and your mom the best, man.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be on. It was a pleasure with Al, yourself, Sean, and it's great, man. Thank you, man.
Yeah. Al, thank you also, man. Good luck with the book.
Yeah, I'm going to check it out, Al.
Thank you, guys. Much appreciated.
Sure. Listen, when the clubs open up, I just want to show you something, Al. There's my avails.
keep scrolling, right? Unfortunately.
Oh.
It's scrolling. Ugly. It's very ugly.
Keep scrolling.
Yeah.
Keep scrolling.
Well, guys, thank you so much for being on the show.
Take care. Thank you.
Take care.
Guys. Take care.
See you next week.
Ciao.
Bye.